Today on Remington's Inside the Industry, I have the pleasure of sitting down with Jim Windjam, the president of Kenetrek Boots of Bozeman, Montana. Kenetrek is one of the hunting world's most recognized boot brands, specifically designed for the serious hunter, as well as offering a diverse product lineup that meets the demands and hunting applications that their customer base has come to appreciate. As you're about to learn, Jim is also a serious hunter, which in my opinion is a great advantage when setting out to create top-end footwear for serious outdoor enthusiasts. This podcast is brought to you by Remington Firearms. For more information on the new era of Remington, visit our site at remarms.com. So today I've got Jim Windjam from Kenetrek Boots, and I use Kenetrek, so I'm really happy to have this conversation because Jim already knows that I really like them. Unlike Dave Fulson, that has to put tape on his boots because he doesn't own Kenetrek. So, Jim, welcome. I'm glad you could take the time to talk.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Look, I was really looking forward to this conversation because I said this the other day when I was talking. You can have all kinds of things, you know, when you're hunting, you can have the best pack, you can have the best gun, you can have all. If you've got sore feet, it makes your freaking life miserable.
Oh, yeah.
It takes all the pleasure away because your feet are killing you or you've got blisters or whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, many hunts have been spent laid up in a tent, you know, especially backpack hunts. You get into sheep hunts, wilderness hunts. That happens way more commonly, especially, you know, these days. It seems like so few of us, you know, make a living in the woods anymore. Everybody's, you know, kind of behind their desk, and then they want to strap their boots on and, you know, go 10, 12 miles a day, you know, with a pack on. I mean, it's obviously a formula for disaster if your feet aren't, you know, if your boots aren't good quality to begin with, and if your feet aren't broken into the boots, it can be a real nightmare scenario.
Well, I have to tell you, you know, your feet broken into the boots or the boots broken into your feet, whatever's the case. But when I got my Kenetrek boots was 2 or 3 years ago, I don't remember exactly. I didn't really. They didn't take any time at all for a break-in, and I really, you know, because in the past, I grew up in the Canadian Rockies. I, you know, spent a lot of time outdoors, you know, not climbing, but going up and down mountains.
Sure.
And I had some sore feet on occasion, and it always took time to break something in. But when I got my Kenetreks, they really did not break in.
We've tried. That's one of the best attributes of our boots is a comfort, you know, and the boots are, you know, they're my designs, but they're basically made by a wonderful manufacturer in Italy, in northern Italy, and they are absolute craftsmen. I mean, the thought and the effort that they put into every boot. So they actually do. I'm sure you ran into this, Ken, that the boot actually ends up molding right to your foot, you know, over a period of time, and it becomes almost like a really good fitting leather glove.
Yeah, no, they're wonderful. I have experienced that. Yes.
Yes, and so like I say, it's not that they're uncomfortable to begin with, but they just get better and better as you know, you get some flex in that midsole, and for certain you know, if you do have a hot spot or you have something that, you know, not quite the right size or the right width, I mean, you certainly want to find that out long before you're on a 10-day backpack sheep hunt.
Yeah, I don't do the 10-day backpack sheep hunts now. I'm not a young kid anymore.
Yeah, me neither.
And you know, back in the day, I'd have no problems. And maybe I could do them. I just, to be perfectly honest with you, I don't like sleeping on the ground. I think my feet are fine. My back gets really sore.
Yeah.
How did, well, first of all, whereabouts in northern Italy? Because I used to be in the ski business, and I've stayed at just a wonderful town in Solo, northern Italy. But there's a big region that is primarily boot manufacturers, ski boot, mountain high. So whereabouts in northern
it's in
Italy?
that Montebelluna area. I mean, we can see, you know, the Oslo factory. I mean, it's just a fabulous region. And
Yeah.
most all of the Italian footwear manufacturing is located within, within 100 kilometers of that area.
Well, I know that the factories that I worked with when I was in the ski business were in Montebelluno area,
Yes.
and the first place I stayed at was, and I know the town was named DeSolo, and it had one-way street.
Yes.
You had to
Yes.
wait for the light to change before you
Oh yeah.
went,
Yeah. And a big
and
hill. Yeah.
yeah, and I remember when I first went there, they said, "This is the most beautiful hotel." Blah blah
Yeah.
blah. And I remember driving into this town and pulling into the garage across the street and walking across this little tiny village street, and looking at the door on the outside and thinking, "Shit, this is a dumpy hotel." And then I got inside, and it's just spectacular. And then
Yeah.
as I learned, I found out that the village is like 2,000 years old or some
Yes.
crazy amount,
Exactly.
and they're not really allowed to do anything on the
No.
exterior.
Yeah.
But the inside was just spectacular. I mean,
Yeah.
spectacular.
That goes way back to Roman days. I mean, just absolutely
Yeah.
fabulous.
Well, I envy you getting to go there so often.
I do.
Tell me how so you started Kenetrek, is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, I have two other partners, so there's three founders, and so I was in the boot business for a long time. I mean, I kind of came out of school here in Montana, and graduated in mechanical engineering, which really doesn't have that much to do with footwear, but landed a job at another company and pretty much spent a career there. And then they ended up selling that company. That was Schnee's. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but
Yeah,
anyway,
I have.
I developed their pack boots and ended up spending almost more time in marketing. And it was a pretty small company, and so I was able to wear a lot of hats. And I had two hunting partners and one in one ear, one in the other ear, saying, we need to do our own thing, and you're kind of doing most everything anyway. It's like, why not do more of a hunting boot? Really focus on that that sheep hunting, mountain hunting element, and so when they sold, I thought, well, I did some soul searching, and I thought, well, if I'm ever going to do it, now is the time, and agonized. My wife was super supportive at the time, because obviously when the new owner came into Schnee's, he was like, you can pretty much, have twice as much salary. You can, you can pretty much write your own ticket. You can have whatever title you want. I said, how about owner? He said, other than that one.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
anyway, so I decided to take the plunge, and what allowed me to do that was just the thought of, it wasn't even so much trying and failing, it was not trying and regretting it, down the road. And so I felt like I was really handed a golden opportunity, and so we, felt kind of like base jumping off of a bridge or something. I mean, it was pretty spooky. That was in 2005. And so
no. Look, that's a challenge when you can, because I don't know really much about you, but when you've got a family and you've got a
it's so hard.
regular income, it's a
Yeah.
tough choice to do
So
that.
hard. I remember my father saying, "You're nuts." I'm like, well, you've known that for a while, Dad.
Yeah. Why has this come as a surprise
Yeah,
to you now?
exactly.
But now he's probably saying, "Hey, that was a pretty good choice."
Yeah, oh yeah. It took a few years, but I used to kind of joke to my partners that, because we would post tremendous losses, and just, the capital burn was was extraordinary. The first 3 years, and I used to joke to them that we're going down to get a run up the other side. And that was funny for
Yeah.
about the first couple of years, and then we're a little thin.
But I think things are quite a bit different today. At least,
Yeah.
I don't know that much. I just know that I use them, and I know a lot of guys that I've hunted with have used them.
Yeah.
So
We've
I think,
we've been really blessed, and I mean, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and so like I say, the factory that I work with in Italy, we work with a couple of different places now, but the main factory there, it's almost like I have a brother there, that runs that factory, and we're kind of brothers from different mothers, type thing. Can't even converse very well because I don't speak Italian, and he speaks somewhat broken English. But he'll look at me and say, "Can we just leave the boots the same 1 year?" And I'm like, "No. If there's something I can do to improve the boots, we're going to make modifications. That's just all there is to it."
Yeah, but I tell my staff that, I don't think you have to be uh, brain surgeons in business. If you're in the consumer products business, I think what you have to do is you have to have high quality, you have to be innovative, and you have to give good service. If you do those three things, I think
Yes.
it's almost impossible to fail.
Yeah.
So the innovative part, if you know that something's wrong,
Yeah.
I think it's great that you make them change it.
Yes, absolutely.
Or
And our
I
customers are
should.
our greatest. They're our greatest testing lab because we repair a lot of boots, and so we have thousands and thousands of pairs of boots that come back, that are worn out. Maybe some duct tape on them, but anyway, I'm able to really see. So it isn't just me. It isn't just testing labs. It's like our consumers, send those back. We have some of the hardest users on the planet, and they send those boots back, and I'm able to really dissect that boot and see, where did that fail, and did it all wear out at the same time? Did it provide, good solid support all the way until the life of the boot was over? And it's a pretty amazing laboratory to have thousands of pairs of boots to look at.
It beats any laboratory
Oh
because
yeah.
the reality is, and I remember I've been I spent most of my career in the ski industry, and the last 20 some odd years in the firearms industry. And the simple reality is that a lab will never do what the consumer will
Right.
do.
Right.
Whatever, if you want to test a product, give it to consumers, because things that you think nobody will ever do, they will do.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And they'll do it over and over and over again.
Oh
So in firearms, there's a drop test.
yeah.
That's but there's no such thing as a drop test down 100 feet. Well, I promise you, somebody has dropped a gun down 100 feet before,
Right. Right.
onto rocks or in the water or whatever it is.
Sure.
So we can't test like that. So your consumers are your best testing.
Oh yes.
So, but you're an avid hunter yourself, of course.
I am. Yeah. Yeah. I'm born and raised in Montana. Multi-generations, and
Whereabouts in Montana?
I came
Bozeman?
from the Great Falls area.
Okay.
So we're kind of a strong Norwegian heritage, and there's just a lot of different areas that people came from, but it was, they emigrated to the U.S. and a lot went to Minnesota, and then they were making their way to the West Coast, over to the Seattle area and Oregon area, and so a bunch of them, it was where the work was, and so mining was so big, back, in the early 1900s, and that's when they basically started coming in droves, for better opportunity, and so at one point I had, like I say, I come from that Great Falls area, and I think I had 50. I've lost count now, but 54 cousins or something like that. So a long time heritage in that community.
Well, I know Montana really well because I was born and raised in in Calgary and Banff area.
Yeah, sure, right.
So it's just not that far across,
Right.
and because I was in the ski business, I used to get to Big White and to all kinds of different places, and Whitefish. So
Right,
I know
sure.
we spent quite a bit of time in Montana, and so and then from there you got a mechanical engineering grade. Absolutely tells you nothing about boots, not very much.
Well, a little bit, but you got to look pretty hard.
Yeah. But then it was just the passion of hunting, and
Yes,
that brought you
exactly.
to this.
Yeah, and I'm a taller guy, and so I tell, you don't see a lot of giraffes in the mountains, and so I've got thin bony feet, and that's not conducive either. And so I've just really struggled. I developed a passion early on for, of course, the normal things: deer hunting, antelope hunting, elk hunting, but but then I kind of fell in love with the sheep hunting and that backpack wilderness type experience. And so I've been super fortunate to spend a lot of time, pursuing sheep, and ended up getting a. I've also been incredibly fortunate as far as drawing and winning hunts. I think I'm up to 25 or something once
Oh,
in a
wow.
lifetime hunts that I've
Some people
won or
will never
drawn.
draw one.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I actually drew 2 desert sheep hunts in the same year.
Oh,
The
jeez.
2 permits. I mean, that like had never happened before. I think Garth Carter had said it was like 1 in 180,000 years odds. I mean, just insane luck.
And are you still able to do that? I mean, do you still get out all
Yeah.
every year? Or?
Oh yeah. Well, so one thing leads to another. Like I never set out to get what they call the Grand Slam of North American sheep. All 4 species, and
Yep.
one thing led to another, and I was able to achieve that with a rifle, and then I was silly enough to try to do it with a bow as well. And so I mean, you just have to be careful what you wish for, because then I achieved that, and so I've got 2 Grand Slams of sheep, and then there's this thing called the Super Slam, which is all 29 North American species, right? And so then I'm like, well, shoot, I got a bunch of those. I might as well keep going. And so I've been chasing a lot of those. I have 6 left, with the bow of the.
Oh, wow.
I mean, so yeah,
So
I've been able to
got
spend
that
a lot of
with
time.
so basically you really are more of a bow hunter than a rifle at this point
I
in
do
time.
both. I mean, I can appreciate both. I mean, the ballistics, and I do all my own reloading as well, and to work the load to the gun. I mean, there's some of that engineering that is a huge draw to me, and so I do that as well. I mean, I don't know. You just kind of be careful what you wish for, and you all of a sudden start going down a road that you never really intended, and all of a sudden I'm like, well, I've only got 6 left to go. So anyway, I'm kind of channeling my energy into that
Yeah,
area.
it's like going to the doctor and waiting, or I actually maybe I better. It's a little different. Maybe the DMV.
Yeah. Oh
Going
yeah.
to the DMV and sitting there and waiting and waiting and waiting and thinking, oh, geez, I'm screwed. I'm going to go. Yeah, but I've waited so long. I might as well just wait a little longer.
Right.
You know,
You're
just,
committed. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. You get to a point that if you don't
Yeah.
finish it, you're just crazy. So, if you were to what's the ideal boot? Tell me. I mean, Kenetrek, okay, but what do you look for? What if somebody's saying, "Hey, I've got to get something new"? What am I? Or as you never mind. What am I? I want something comfortable, but as a manufacturer, what do you want to do with a boot?
Yeah. I mean, it kind of depends on what temperature levels you're looking at. Like a summer hiking boot, our mountain boots would be maybe a little bit of overkill for that. But and so some of it depends on weather, time of year, climate that you're in, and then the next thing is what's the terrain. It's a big difference if you're carrying a backpack, and like I just helped a customer yesterday actually that was headed to the Northwest Territories on a 10-day Dall sheep backpack hunt. And I'm like, okay, here's the boot for you. It's the Mountain Extreme, non-insulated. It's the absolute perfect boot, for that situation, because I know what he's going to experience. And it's no trails. You're hopping up rocks, going up streams, and then you've got tussocks that you've got to deal with, and then you've got shale, and you're expected to be able to traverse in steep mountains 10 to 12 miles per day every day. I mean, that is a taxing endeavor. And so that boot might be, and that's the perfect boot for him. If somebody else says, hey, I just want to hike around Yellowstone or Glacier Park, and be able to cover long distances and have comfort and have support, and maybe carry a day pack that's 20 pounds or something on my back, well, then that might be, like you might be able to get away with a light hiker like the Corey 2, a fabric leather hiker that's very light, very breathable, still supportive, and perfect for that. So it really does depend, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, but from the manufacturing point, what do you when you're starting to design or develop a boot? What do you What are you really looking at? I mean, are you looking at support? What are you looking at? Support, I guess
Yeah, I
support,
mean,
comfort,
to
etc.
me, it's you know, like you can kind of break down the key features of our boot, and what we're known for the most is the rigid support, you know, and so if you grab a boot, like I call it the torsional rigidity test, you can grab it by the toe and grab it by the heel, and then torque and twist that boot. And some very soft boots, you'll be able to twist them right in half, and that is not a supportive boot. And you know, you that may be comfortable on flat ground, but you get in uneven terrain, you really pose the risk of pretty significant injuries. Like you could actually sprain your ankle in some boots that are so soft. They're quiet, they're lightweight, they're cushy, but support is a different animal, if that makes sense. If you're in the rocks, and you know, you want to be able to have a stiff enough midsole that you can picture standing on a golf ball or standing on a railroad spike, and be able to have your whole entire foot supported. So that, you know, so when I'm talking, you know, and there's flex scales and different things like that, but we're known to have a supportive boot. But then the secondary feature is the lightest of all of the equivalently supportive boots. And then our big third benefit is to make that boot the most comfortable. So there's lots of supportive boots out there that are not comfortable, and that's what you're talking about when you put your boots on and you could just feel like you could just go. That's that.
Yeah, look, I've had a couple of boots that are, excuse me, I've had a couple of boots that are just not comfortable.
Right.
And could I make them comfortable? Yeah, but in general, you know, maybe when I was, you know, 18, 19 years old, that I didn't have a career and I could spend the summer hiking around the mountains. Yeah, I could make them comfortable. I don't have that option today. You know,
Right.
I've got a certain amount of time that I have to, you know, that I can get out in the field, and so the boot really has to be comfortable. And honestly, when I got the boots from you, from Kenetrek, not from you personally, but from Kenetrek, I put them on and I went hunting. You know, I wore them around a little bit, make sure they fit, but I went hunting right away with them, and I had no discomfort whatsoever. But I was also, you know, maybe I understand how it should feel. I don't know, but I was also I kind of got, and I don't recall the model, but I didn't get the I got one with some insulation in it.
Yeah.
You know, kind of not the extreme, but it certainly was an insulated boot, because my feeling was I can wear a boot that's too warm if I go hunting in warm climates, but if it gets colder, I don't want to have to have two separate boots, so I don't.
Right.
And I've hunted I was hunting elk in Colorado a couple of years ago, and it was bloody 75 degrees. I was perfectly
warm.
comfortable.
Yeah.
You know, so but I've also been hunting again in Colorado that it was, you know, 6 inches of snow and it was 10 degrees.
Yeah,
I was still perfectly comfortable.
Yeah.
So to me, I don't really want to have two. I just want to have one. But I was also, and this was, you know, to me is really, really important. I just came back from Africa not too long ago, and we were climbing, you know, in Africa. So this is South Africa. They don't have any monstrous big climbs or anything like that, but they've got some incredibly rocky terrain.
Yes.
And one day we walked, because, you know, the nice thing is you got your iPhone in your pack, and so it tells you how many steps. So we walked like 5.6 miles in this miserable rocky terrain. And for me, that was really a big deal because I had a knee replacement in December.
Oh, yeah.
So I did not want. I was a little bit slower than the PH, but you know, I was able to do it. So to me, the stability of a boot was really, really important because okay, I could stand before maybe I twist an ankle, but if I go down, I could damage my knee, and that would not be pretty. So so I looked. The boot was great.
Yeah.
What about? But you've kind of branched. You don't just make. I guess you don't just say we make hunting boots alone. You've got multiple different types of boots, I think.
Yeah, we kind of started in that that kind of mountain hunting area, but a lot of the the magical formula that we came up with for mountain hunting, then our customers would actually drive us. Like I can remember having some wildland firefighters, and they're like using our mountain extreme boot, you know, be, because it's the very best boot they've ever had on their feet, and they're like, I don't want to go back to my heavy, traditional logging firefighting boots. I want, you need to make this boot for wildland firefighters. I'm like, you can't wear that boot. It's heat sensitive. You can't wear that on a fire line. It's going to completely come apart. And I can remember them just challenging me, saying, you need to develop this boot. And I'm like, I mean, I'm can be fairly stubborn, and I'm like, no, we don't know anything about that. That's not our area of expertise. That's not our market. And finally, I would just say, all right, I'll look into it, and so then that launches us on a 2-year program to basically create the same support and comfort that we have in our mountain boots in a wildland fire boot. And because you basically have to completely change all of the components, and in order to certify as a wildland fire boot, to pass all of the rigorous testing that's required, you have to have different rubber compounds, different adhesives, no membrane, different leather, Kevlar thread, Kevlar laces. There can't be any man-made materials, because they literally like blowtorch that thing, in those flame tests. And so we, started down that road, and so we've come out with a at the end, a wonderful wildland fire boot. And so we have all of these different little niche markets that we've been able to, dive into. Same thing with linemen. Like you picture a lineman that has to have a stiff enough boot to be able to climb power poles, right? And then to be able to do that in inclement weather, which is when they always have to do it.
And yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Nobody ever says a 75-degree sunny day. Oh,
I got
go
a
ahead,
problem
run
with
up
my
that
power.
Yeah,
no, it's
exactly.
like horrible weather and windstorms and just carnage. And that's when they need that product. And so we've developed a lineman boot, specifically driven by those customers, saying, look, like we wear on the inside, a ball of your foot, because we're climbing those poles, and those poles are very abrasive, and they have to be able to kind of shimmy up those poles with their spikes on, and they have certain wear patterns that they'll wear right through the side of a boot. And so I'm like, okay, well, what if we, we just, again, using our customer base as our kind of living laboratory, we're able to develop some just absolutely fantastic products, for these individual markets.
What about the military? I look at the military guys.
We've done it on military. We've done it on steel toes. Same exact thing.
Because I look at the military guys. I see them quite often, airports and different places.
Yes.
And I look at their boots and think, that boot doesn't look that great.
Yes. Unfortunately, a lot of times, the footwear is not the best. They have some of the very best, military firearm equipment. You think of the optics that they have, and the night vision, and all of this, and then we said about there was some of the crummiest footwear ever made.
Yeah,
it's just,
exactly.
It's really
it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
What about to those people that like, how can they really make their boot last? And because I've got some, and I know what I do with mine, but
yeah.
I've got Kenetrek. I know what I do. So, people that, like my friend Dave here, that's using duct tape on his boots. How can I keep from using duct tape on my boots?
Well, you obviously want to give them a little TLC, so you want to clean them, especially if you're in, abrasive mud and dirt and the grime, because all of that is abrasives, right? And once you get that into the leather, it can be a real challenge. So just to give them a once over, literally soap and water type thing, saddle soap and water and a brush,
Really?
and go go after that boot and clean that boot, and then you want to condition the boot. So anywhere you've got leather, and it depends. If you've got a fabric leather boot, then it can be as simple as a silicone spray like a camp dry or something like that. But the leather boots, you definitely want to replenish, kind of the natural oils that are in that tanned leather. And so we actually manufacture our own boot wax, which is basically a vegetable oil, beeswax and vegetable oil combination, and so that'll kind of darken the boots down a little bit, and then you can tell when you need to reapply that is when they start to lighten up and discolor.
Geez, I feel like getting home and cleaning mine now.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I think you're always great for a period of time, and then
Yeah.
I think we all tend to.
We all do that, don't we?
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of like cleaning your rifles too, right? I mean, there's some people that do a really good job. Some people are like, "Oh, I didn't shoot it that much."
Yeah,
right?
I personally absolutely hate cleaning my rifle. I just hate it.
Just doesn't feel productive, does it?
Yeah, the other thing too is it doesn't shoot really well right after cleaning.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So
Yeah.
you have to have the fouling shot to even get it back to where you were.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was out. Interesting story. Our shotgun. Look, I'm plugging Remington now, but that's
Sure.
okay. Our shotgun that we brought out, Remington brought out before I came. It's called the V3.
Yeah.
V3 Waterfowl Pro. It's in my opinion, and anybody that's used it is just the best shotgun that they've ever used for upland game and waterfowl. And it's softest shooting. It does all this. Anyhow, we were doing some filming on the V3 in conjunction with Cryptic because they brought a new waterfowl line out, etc.
Oh, sure.
Last year in Arkansas, and one of the guys, Dave's partner here, Tim, he's an avid, and more than avid. I said maybe he's a lunatic duck hunter. I mean, that's all he lives for is duck hunting. And he's had a V3 for a number of years, and just never anything went wrong with it.
Yeah.
So we were going on this hunt in Arkansas, and Tim decided, gee, maybe I should clean it. Well, we got down there, and it wasn't working. So he was talking to my VP of engineering on the phone, and my engineer asked him, he said, well, did you clean it? And Tim said, yeah, I cleaned it. He said, have you got 10,000 rounds through it? Tim said, no. He said, well, don't clean it until you've got 10,000 rounds through it.
Oh, my gosh, that's a lot of rounds.
Because, well, that's what we tested at, 10,000 rounds. And then the place that we were is a kind of a new relative of mine. My son married, and his wife just married a year ago, and his wife was related to this guy in Arkansas, and it was his property. So he knew that we were coming, and he went out and just at retail bought a couple of V3s, Waterfowl Pros, and his the outfitter that was doing that leases the land from him was using one. And during our time down there, he said, I've never had a gun as good as this in my life. He said, I don't take care of my guns. I treat them like shit. I throw them away. I get them soaking wet and muddy. And he said, I just don't even clean them. Yeah. And he said, it's never failed on me. Never once. So
yeah, that's a sign of unbelievable dependability, huh?
Yeah. So even if I wasn't the Remington CEO, I hate cleaning guns so much I would use that gun. You know? So and I've taken good care of my boots when they were new. I haven't taken such good care of them recently.
To tell you the truth, most people don't.
No, but I guess that's good for you too. That's good for business.
Yeah, for sure.
I had no idea that it sounds to me like a fairly decent part of your business is rejuvenating boots. Is it?
It is. It's probably only ends up being 10 to 15% of our sales.
Right.
The boots get rebuilt because a lot of times people are like, I've gotten 6-7 years out of the boot. I could resole it, but maybe I just wanted to get a new pair. And so that ends up happening quite a bit. But we do thousands and thousands of pairs every single year, and have from day one.
How long does it take you if somebody's how much in advance of a hunt should somebody send to have their boots redone?
Yeah, it can be six to 8 weeks. It depends on the seasonality, of course, and how busy that repair shop is. Because they don't go back to Italy. We actually have a repair center that's here. So we actually use two of them. We have one right here that's on site, and then we also work with a company out of San Diego that does a lot of refurbishing for many different companies, and they do a pretty good job as well.
Well, 6 to 8 weeks is not bad at all, really.
Yeah,
I don't think.
yeah, it's the planning. A lot of times, how it goes. You look at your boots, and it's, I mean, the week before you're going, and it's like, oh darn it, I meant to do that, right?
Well, then you get the duct tape.
Exactly.
How long? Look, I know this is not an easy answer, but you said somebody's had it for 6 or 7 years. How long can somebody expect a normal hunter?
Yeah, if it's a normal hunter that's even an avid hunter, and I'm not talking about a guide, that's making a living doing it every, week after week after week, but a normal hunter, you would expect to see 5 to 7 years, before. And again, it depends on how heavy somebody is, how athletic they are. I mean, it's kind of like, it's really almost like tires, right? You think about, well, I mean, you can get so many miles, but there's some people that drive, a lot harder miles than other people. It just depends.
Well, you'll like this story then.
Yeah.
A number of years ago, I moved to upstate New York, and I bought a Porsche. And I'm a driver. I actually race cars.
Oh yeah.
I've always been a fanatic driver, so I bought this Porsche, and my family was still in Denver, and while I was in upstate New York, and the kids had started school, so I was, didn't want to disrupt them and move them and stuff like that. So I was flying back to Denver to visit, and this new Porsche, I'd only had 2,000 miles on it, and it was in getting a new set of tires. And I was telling the guy, I said, look, this is ridiculous. New set of tires, 2,000 miles. And blah, blah, blah. Yeah, well, I said, look, let me put this in perspective. I'm flying tomorrow or next day, whenever it is. I'm flying to Denver. But if I was driving, you would have to put this set of tires on today. I would drive to Denver. I would get a new set of tires on when I'm in Denver. I would drive back, and I'd get a new set of tires after I returned.
Sure.
And I said, that makes no sense to me. He said, you know what? I think we'll put a set of tires on for free for you. Yeah. So that's my tire story. But kind of normal 6 to 7 years.
Yeah, I mean, you can expect that. I mean, that's probably the average. Now, that being said, some of the stone sheep guides, I mean, they are the toughest folks on the planet. And I mean, they literally will they can't get 2 seasons out of a boot. They'll get 1.5 years or something, right? I mean, and their boots are tattered, at the end of the season. I mean, they're just that hard on their footwear.
Well, sadly I have never been sheep hunting. I took a huge sabbatical from hunting. I grew up, and did a certain amount of hunting, and then went off into a different industry, and I just never did. But then I got back into hunting, and for like 25 years ago or something, and I thought, geez, I'd really love to sheep hunt, but I've got really bad knees, got osteoarthritis, had to have a knee replaced, and it was just such a physical type of hunt that I'd never have, and I just, I'll probably go to my grave kicking my ass that I didn't. Yeah. Because I do know too that there's there's certainly some outfitters that will fly people up, helicopter them, which doesn't sound right to me.
Right.
I think if you're going to sheep hunt, actually really put a backpack on or horseback, whatever it is, and get up to the places that other people don't go to.
Yeah, it's an incredible experience. But But I do have to
Well,
admit that I like all of it. I mean, like I've done it. I'm pretty much done it all. Whether it's I went last year and went to Alaska on a baited black bear hunt. And I've never done anything like that before. And I thought, that's pretty darn interesting. I mean, I've black bear hunted many times, spot and stalk. Because we don't have baiting and we don't have
right.
hounds in Montana, but it was actually quite fascinating to watch. To be able to observe. Because we're in a tree stand over a bait or whatever. And the guy that I was with would freshen that bait every single day, and those bears were just like they would just come out like ghosts. I mean, like you just never hear anything. They just come slinking, through the timber, and you got to. I mean, on across that hunt, I ended up taking two bears with my bow, but ended up seeing, I think, 50 or something like that. You
Oh,
get
really?
to recognize them and watch their behavior, and I mean, it was quite fascinating.
Yeah, no, I'm the same. I think any kind of hunting, I love it. I like being out there. Excuse me, I like seeing how they do things, and
Yes,
it's
yes, it's
different with
all
the different
different.
pHs. But the talk about how quiet the bears are. I've been to Africa, and elephants going through the bush, and you can hardly hear them. And look at
How
the
is that
size of the
possible?
bloody things.
Yeah,
Yeah, but really, unless they do something like decide to pull a tree out of the ground, you really can't. You just can barely hear them,
right, right. Just
and
so
they're
distant. Yeah,
monstrous. Yeah,
yeah.
but I'm the same. I'm not a big fan personally. I'm not a big fan of sitting in a blind. I don't. I
Yeah,
prefer
sure.
to stalk and spot. But I'm the same. I think that just I was on. I just came back from Africa maybe a month ago, and this is the first time that I'd hunted Cape Buffalo, and I had lots of other playing games, but I had just a great time because we stalked that buffalo out to we were about 30 meters from it,
Oh wow, yeah.
uh, which was
That's bow
really
range.
yeah exactly, but it was really exciting because just first of all they're dangerous,
Hmm.
so you there's always a certain amount of apprehension when you're getting that close because at 30 meters they can cover a lot of ground in a
Oh
short
yeah,
period of time.
yeah.
But it was really a lot of fun. But I've been on other hunts that that you're stalking or spotting and shooting something from 300 yards. But they're all great to me because I just think you enjoy it. But I think that but you never enjoy it if your feet are sore.
Oh right, yeah, exactly, exactly.
I remember as a kid um, hiking up in the mountains and having to and sitting down and taking my boots off because my feet were so damn sore. And
Yeah, oh
that's
yeah,
and it's one thing getting sore feet; it's another thing getting blisters.
yes, yes. Well, you can
Be,
cripple yourself. I mean, for sure. I mean, because you need to pay attention to those. You get a hot spot, and you better get on that right away. A lot of times, by the time you feel it, it's too late. You've already got the blister.
right, exactly.
And so yeah, you better be on that right away because it's not one of those things that you should just say, well, I'll just tough it out, because it gets worse and worse and worse, and it's it's there's a reason that they have the term tenderfoot, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I hadn't even thought of that, but that
Yeah.
that is a perfect term. Um, Look, as I said, my boots are incredibly comfortable. But how long do you think that? I mean, when somebody buys a new pair of boots, you a new pair of Kenetrek boots, what what do you tell them to do with them?
Yeah, we tell them the break in, like in order to we describe that whole molding process that's going to go on. The boot is going to actually take the shape of your foot, but it's going to take you 40 to 50 miles. And some people we say that and they're like, I've never hunted 40 or 50 miles my whole life, and I'm like, well, it's you don't have to do them all in one day, but you need to be doing that type of training anyway. You need to have the physical ability, and it can be flat ground, it can be on a treadmill, but I mean, just a consistent break-in process with your boots will get you the most value. Um, not to say that there aren't people that take them right out of the box and go. They do, but it's just a lot less risky if you know put some attention and some dedication into, like I say, that breaking of the melding of the foot to the boot and the boot to the foot, both.
Yeah, I didn't get 40 or 50 miles, but I had my boots on for maybe 10 miles.
Yeah. So what were you covering in when you're in Africa? You're typically walking a lot of miles. I mean, how many miles were you averaging a day?
Probably not that many. Maybe 6 miles a day.
Well, that adds up. So.
Yeah. Look, I've had my boots for a number of years, but I think I took them out, and obviously they hadn't formed my foot yet, but they were just I had a good 10 miles on them, maybe more than that.
Sure.
And they were just so comfortable that I said, I'm not going to have a problem with these in the field.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a stupid thing to say, but I didn't have a problem.
Right.
Maybe I could have, but it's interesting to me that people will. I actually think a lot of people don't think. They'll buy the best gun, they'll buy a great pack, they'll buy a great sleeping bag, and they buy shitty boots, and I don't understand that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know.
It's because I don't know why either. I just can't figure it out.
Right.
So if we look at Kenetrek to other well-known brands, is Kenetrek same price, more expensive, less expensive?
We're kind of at the high end. I mean, it's like all of those things that we do. Like I could look at our Mountain Extreme boot, and like I say, that perfectionist tendency. It's like there's no way having that I'm going to skimp on the best componentry. Like I look between some of the other brands that say like our mountain boot, our upper end mountain boot might be $500 at retail. Well, there's probably other boots that look very similar in pictures, and they're $400. Well, I can guarantee I can save $40 just in the hardware alone, right?
Right.
I mean, so you can really cut component quality, and then also in the manufacturing, in the design. Like our tongues are actually shaved down so that I don't know if you noticed on your boot that the tongue, it's almost like pre-hinged and it just drops right in place.
Yes, I did.
There's a lot of other boots that you have to fold those in, and kind of mechanically break that in because they don't go through all those processes. And
yeah, no, I did notice that actually.
Makes a big difference.
It's kind of interesting because one of the things, excuse me, I came at Remington. Remington when they were owned by a company called Cerberus for many years. They just did a terrible job. They took an iconic brand and they kind of ruined it. And in 2018, they went into Chapter 11 bankruptcy.
Right.
And then one of the banks that ended up being one of the equity owners asked me if I would join the board, which I did. And a year later, I took over as CEO. So that's when I really kind of got involved. I knew I'd worked with Remington for a long time before that because I was the CEO of Crosman Corporation, and we had a licensing agreement. So I knew the company a little bit.
Sure.
But what I said earlier about quality, innovation, and customer service are so important because when I took over as CEO, that was one of the major things. We have to do something with the quality. We have to make an improvement of the quality. And it's amazing to me, you talk about just little things about, whether it be guns or boots or whatever it is. Remington, under previous ownership, was saving pennies on their 870 shotgun by not tumbling some of their parts. So they're smooth.
Sure.
And I mean literally pennies, maybe 3 cents a gun.
Right.
And so now the gun goes out into the field and it functions fine, but it doesn't have that nice smooth action of a pump that it should be. Over what? 3 cents a freaking gun?
Right.
and now people start saying bad stuff about, well, Remington, spend a little bit extra and charge a little bit extra. So when I came, I said, okay, look, we're going to make our guns incredibly, the quality is going to be fabulous. Right now, for the last 2 years, we've got a less than 0.36% return rate for quality issues, which is tremendous.
Yeah.
I think most companies would say, wow, if I can get to that. But has it cost us a lot more? It's cost us some, sure. But to add it on to what you're requesting them to buy, and don't try to compete with people. Like Remington was competing with Mossberg at their first price point. We don't make a first price point gun. We used to. We took our next price point gun and we said, oh, hey, before my time, we're going to compete with Mossberg. And so what do? Lower the price. Let them have that market.
Right.
It's not a big deal. Focus on your own business and your own quality.
Yeah.
And it sounds to me like that's exactly what Kenetrek has done. Said, look, this is who we want to be, and let's focus on being that and just making sure we've got the best product that there possibly
very,
can be.
best. I mean,
yeah.
We obviously we could sell many more units. If we went for the $300 price point. I mean, we could easily do that, but that's just not. It's like we have a reputation, and now we have a reputation to protect, and to be the very best and to be an industry leader, and that's really it's not to say that one is wrong and the other is right. It's just that's our particular goal, and that's been my marketing, and what has driven me is to again, that whole perfectionist thing. It's very hard to be a perfectionist at a price point.
Well, yeah,
they don't go together.
But also, you're an avid sheep hunter.
Yes.
So
I understand.
So you understand it, and so what are you going to do? Make your product, save 30% on it.
Yes.
And then you have problems in the field with it, so you don't want to do that. And you're right. It's not that. Excuse me. It's not that somebody else is wrong. It's they are after a different market. But I also believe very strongly, you just can't be all things to all people.
Right.
You can't. You're at the upper end of the market. You can't be at the lower end and at the upper end. It doesn't work that way.
Right. That's correct.
So, but I think the other thing with people that are at the lower end, I think most of the time they only get a one-time purchaser.
Right.
I will come back to the trough, God willing that I get a lot more years. I'll come back to the trough and send you an email and say, hey, Jim, I really need some new boots.
I'm ready,
yeah. So you get a repeat customer.
Yeah.
So look, Jim, I'm going to, call it a day. It's been great to chat with you. I'd like to take you to give your own company a bit of a plug. How do people reach you? How do they, reach out, look at your website or whatever it is?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we do catalog. We kind of market all over the place to our customers, and we have 500 or 600 different sporting goods dealers, all across the U.S. and some in Canada as well. But yeah, I mean, the best place to find us is at Kenetrek.com. It's KENETREK.com.
Perfect. What about because you're a big online seller too, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we do sell, because we carry such a variety of sizes. We go all the way from size 5 to 16 with 3 different widths, and wow. Like to say, there's none of our dealers are going to carry all of those. They can special order them, but that's kind of a responsibility in the footwear business. If we told our dealers you had to carry a size 16, they'd say, no, we're never going to do that.
Yeah, my once in 10-year guy that walks in.
Yeah, exactly. But we kind of have a responsibility to our customers to make certain that we have that. So that, in and of itself, that kind of leads you to having to have a pretty significant consumer direct business.
So do you encourage people to phone and talk to one of your salespeople about, you know, their foot issues and
We do.
what
We
they
do.
okay.
And we also, and another little niche market that we've developed is we have the Everstep orthopedic boot, and that's where I designed with some really, really good doctors, and we developed a boot that actually has removable nylon braces, kind of like an ankle brace that's built right into the boot.
Okay.
And so we do a tremendous amount of business with the VA, with our veterans,
Yeah, yeah.
because of, again, in the military they're using, maybe a little bit less quality of boots, or not real supportive boots. Well, all of those sins of your youth tend to come back in about the age of 50, and all of a sudden that's when you got to go see the podiatrist and get orthotics made, and all of that to kind of reverse some of that damage, and so we work with lots and lots of veterans every year.
Yeah, life used to be much better, less under 50, but unfortunately, most of us didn't know nearly as much.
That's exactly right. Like I
Yeah.
always say, it's aging is like a slow and steady progression to the ground
Yeah,
with
exactly.
all of your body parts.
Well, yeah, exactly. But the thing is interesting. I said this to somebody the other day that the interesting thing if you've got kids, it's the older the kids get, the smarter the parent becomes. You know,
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
kids are going, "Oh, geez, he knows way more than I thought he did."
Yeah,
Look, Jim, it's been a great conversation. I'm glad we had a chance to visit a little bit. I'll repeat, I'm a huge fan of Kenetrek. It's honestly the best boot that I've ever owned, and I've owned a lot of boots.
that's great to hear. That definitely makes me happy to hear that, and we hear it a lot.
Perfect. I'm sure you do. Jim, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. I'll make sure that I give you an email, a heads up of where you can listen to this, and in advance, and maybe you'll put it on your website or
Yeah,
on your
absolutely.
Instagram page or whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd be happy to do that.
Okay. And Jim, if you ever need anything, reach out. I know a guy at Remington.
Okay. You do,
All right.
and you can pass that on to Tim as well.
Okay, will do. All right. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
All right. Look forward.